Welcome back, folks. Today we're going to talk about The Outer Worlds 2, a brand new RPG from Obsidian. Now, before we begin, the review copy of this game, the deluxe edition, was given to me by Xbox. This title was a long-awaited sequel to an RPG I really enjoyed a while back, and even covered it on the channel a bit. And to be honest, after Avowed, I got into this with a bit of reservation, as I was really hoping it to be good, and after finishing it, it turned out to be a really nice experience. Actually, I really enjoyed Outer Worlds 2, which is no wonder being that Leonard Boyarsky was also directing this. Sadly not with Tim Kaine this time, but I was positively surprised that it just clicked with me to the point I uncovered everything that the game has to offer, even collectibles which usually require full exploration, and I don't, do them unless I really enjoy the game. This is somewhat your classic Obsidian RPG with open world segments, meaning that, well, each planet you visit, and there are 4 in total, act as open world hubs with some, buildings being an instance, meaning, a loading screen. But majority of them are straight up loaded into that open world hub, which was very nice to see. I mean, less time waiting in the loading screen means more time playing. You start off the game as usual by creating your character, choosing your background which can help you in dialogue or even during some skill checks on objects that you find along the way. As always, you select both positive and negative traits if you want and how you want. But through the game itself, as usual, you will be getting traits that sometimes give you something but always take something in return. So basically you have to think if you want to accept them and if that's going to be good for your character. So if there's a trait which comes up on your screen before accepting it or rejecting it, do read, because well, these things can legit make or break your character. Max level you can get to is 30, so spend your points wisely, as well as choose your traits. I did feel like maybe there wasn't too many points that I wanted to have, but it does count into effect that replayability value where you can choose something else and see how things unfold. Of course, there is even a trait which allows you to become somewhat a jack of all trades, but at the same time, this is not the sort of game I believe they wanted to make, but rather you focusing on creating a very specific character, and then if you want something else, you will start a new game. One thing I noticed though is that for best loot, and of course this is one of those games, lockpicking, hacking and engineering were the most useful, especially lockpicking. So if you're gonna be playing this game, make sure to invest in lockpicking. Honestly, it got me some of the best gear I had throughout my game. I focused my character heavily on ranged combat itself, and by the end I was so overpowered, I was simply deleting enemies. So even though there is not too many skill points you can get, you can become really strong, especially if you go and, play side missions and side quests and get equipment from there. And the traits themselves are somewhat cool. I mean, it does have some funny ones, like for example, because I was gifted the deluxe edition of this game, at the start you get a trait called Consumer, where it tells you that, well, marketing does work on you and gives you better prices with traders if you choose to get it. I mean, that's sort of in line with the lore of this game. Another one which was funny was because I was spending so much money in store. I got a trait where one of my companions was worried about my spending, so they opened a savings account where a percentage of everything you loot throughout the game is deposited into that account. And once you reach level 30, it's going to pay out 150% value of that money. It's funny, and it was sort of like, yeah, I'm going to take it because why not? I'm gonna get a bunch of money when I hit level 30. Although the problem was I kinda hit level 30 like really fast, because by the time I got that trait I was level 26 or 27, so it didn't really do much. As you play, you also unlock additional equipment, like for example, time dilation, bullet time itself, armor, a mask which you can use to fight invisible enemies, and check for wiring if you want to unlock something. So it's not just that they're useful once in a mission, but throughout the game itself. You will say, let me use this to see better, or maybe like the tool that I have is gonna be working here. It does not straight up tell you to do it all the time, but you will know when you want to actually use it. Food here plays a huge role, as well as healing, but healing too fast or too much raises your toxicity, and well, you won't end well if you just spam healing. Again, depending on what sort of inhaler you use, because you can pick up some, ones which will heal you less, but let's say they will raise your toxicity less, or they will negate that toxicity, and vice versa. You can have maybe like it's going to replenish most of your health, but your toxicity level is gonna be going really high. Healing with food is only outside of the fight. Later on you can even unlock a perk that makes you loot meat from animals. Very useful. I mean, after that I didn't even have to buy or find any other food source whatsoever because it was healing me really good. Which is important, as money is not easy to come by in this game unless you are really pushing for that, at least what I noticed, but at the same time I was spending a lot with traders. Story-wise, without going into spoilers, this is set after the events of the first game, but it's set in another star system, this time being Arcadia and not the Halcyon system from the first title. So technically it's not a direct sequel, but rather its own story, as endings of the first game don't really impact much. I mean, besides some world building stuff of course, as corporations and the Earth Directorate is still pretty much there, and if you play the first one, you're gonna be getting some little hints here and there. You're gonna be going, okay, that happened. Motivations are a bit different, as you are searching for an ex-ally that betrays you at the start of the game, and that's sort of how the story unfolds and kind of expands itself. It's also filled with side missions and activities, but not to the point where it becomes a chore and starts repeating itself, which is, something I appreciate. They chose to have technically less content, but missions which tie into each other and allow again for choices on how you tackle them, depending on what sort of character you want to play. I would say that in Outer Worlds 2 there is a little bit less impact than the first game, but you can again do some crazy stuff here that allows for that dose of freedom. Characters I met along the way were good. I mean, some stood out more than others of course, but overall I felt like they have enough charisma and difference to keep things interesting. Of course there wasn't too much development, and like this game doesn't really push companions too much. I mean, they have missions, but it's just not too much, which is kinda okay. I mean, as I said, they didn't bore me with dialogue which doesn't make sense, and a lot of that they have actually, which you talk to them, is sort of tied to their own stories and quests you do along the way to have a better standing with them, plus unlocking additional perk for them at the end which can help during the fight or make them a bit stronger. There are no romance options so far I could see. To be honest, I don't care for it that much. I mean, they are more focused on combat itself, as well as additional bonuses like finding more gear, recycling ammo, better healing buffs and so on, so they're actually very useful. Although, as I said, there wasn't a huge character progression with some of them, rather just helping, wrap up their own story arcs and problems. In total, you can get 6 companions and up to 2 as you play, but also keep in mind, like, some of the companions which you do get in this game, it doesn't really tell you, hey, I'm your companion right away, but rather, some of your decisions might make it so that they don't become your companion, simple as that. The story itself is not very serious in tone, kinda in line with the world itself, but it's also not only pushing comedy, as throughout your exploration you will stumble upon scenes which are grotesque in nature to paint how brutal some planets can be. That's where exploration itself plays the part, as the environmental storytelling was well done, and by exploring various locations on the map you will gain resources as well as powerful weapons and armor to equip. Also, I was happy to see that they didn't reuse interiors or exteriors, rather than creating something which stands on its own, again sacrificing the length of the game. But honestly, if the game is extended by artificial repeating missions, then that's nothing. Well, in this game it didn't feel like that, which was good. Story though wasn't mind-blowing. It was okay, sort of predictable, but at the same time decisions you can make and, resolve a lot of stuff through speed checks and, other traits not even engaging in combat. So if you want to sort of play that character, you're able to do it. I mean, there is somewhat of a twist, but it wasn't a huge twist, or there wasn't overwhelming danger that raised the odds too much. I mean, your decisions can do some chaotic things, but the ripple effect is not that grand, and a lot of it, with the world itself and your decisions, they're somewhat morally grey decisions rather than overall good or overall bad. But can you sort of stand on your own and screw everyone up? Well, yeah, technically you can. On the gunplay and well, combat side, if you watched my Avowed video, you know that I really did not enjoy it there, and it was one of the reasons I really didn't vibe with that game. Well, Outer Worlds 2 is the complete opposite of that. Both melee and ranged combat felt good, snappy, crunchy, responsive and precise on hits, with movement being again, as I said, responsive, and I never felt like something was wrong during the combat itself. It just felt good and it clicked with me right away. I noticed that enemies can be relatively smart in how they fight, as well as having good animations responding to getting hit. There is a huge variety of weapons, with some unique ones that didn't play a huge role, but rather legendary weapons did, as you are able to mod it, craft those mods, ammo and so on, as well as break down items you find for resources or sell them depending what you want as your character. There is a lot of variety there, especially as both armor and weapons complement your play style, so they will be giving different buffs depending on how you want to shape your character. I mean, once you find that weapon which just clicks with your build, you will be using it for the rest of the game. I didn't change too many armor pieces though, didn't feel like it, as the armor I found was more than enough for my range skill and, for example, critical damage chance and damage itself I was going for. So maybe I think that could have been one of the things where I just again really did not change a lot of armor pieces, because as I said, majority of them are very specific in what sort of character you're playing at that time. Your companions have their own weapons, and during the fight you can use their abilities to help out. They were useful. I didn't feel like companions were a burden or were hindering my gameplay, which is nice. Micromanaging companions in these sort of games is a drag, and I just didn't feel like it here, and that was very good because they can get downed, of course, but at the same time they're not too stupid to the point where they're just going to automatically, get downed. Also, every single companion is different. Their personality, background and goals all technically align with the player character, but along the way you will see those nuances and how differently they react in different situations. Now, the strongest aspect for me here was the environmental and level design. Set pieces were nice to see, colors were well done, maybe on the first planet Eden. Maybe there was too much color, to the point where I couldn't see enemies, but it's just nitpicking overall. Depending on the planet and what sort of biome it is in the first place is going to play that role in how it looks. And from the moment you leave your ship, seeing stuff in front of you for the first time was cool, as seeing all of the points of interest and buildings just make you want to explore them, and you can. In relation to levels themselves, there was enough verticality as well as caves to explore. I mean, not too much, but it was complementing itself. Each section of the map felt like it was done in detail, as I didn't really find unused empty space that serves nothing. Even the furthest random areas you come across might have some wild gear. Same for corporations like Auntie's Choice and the Order. I mean, their aesthetics were well done, including the Protectorate one, which plays more like enemies and stuff you fight along the way than having some quest related stuff. There are here and there, but I do wish that the Protectorate was playing a bit of a bigger role in like just the RPG segment rather than just us, fighting them. There weren't also any grand boss fights. Most were localized, but technically there are bosses in this game you come across with, exploration and story. Even on higher difficulties, it didn't feel too strong or difficult, but if you're exploring everything well, you can become really, really overpowered, so that they were not that tricky. Honestly, they can deal a lot of damage to you, so you have to be careful how you fight. You just cannot stand in one place and tank the hits all the time, but it's also easy for you to down them, as well it is easy for them to down you. So I kinda appreciated that, because enemies didn't feel too bullet spongy, which is always good in these games, especially if it rewards you for finding better gear, because if I found a really good weapon, I actually want to feel strong, and I did. There is also the mechanic with Zeranium, which downs you if you stand in it for too long. But there are some perks and things you can choose for Zeranium to become your ally even in the game. But your shield can act as a protection in case you want to run through it or go into locations that have loot but also have Zeranium you have to cross. I mean, if it poisons you, it provides a debuff that you can only remove on your ship or if you visit a doctor. There also wasn't too much backtracking here and there or just going back and forth, although some missions, especially some side missions, will take you back to, let's say, the first planet itself you visit, and you can always freely go back to it whenever you want. Although there is no free play after ending, as it's sort of tradition, there is a point of no return, so keep that in mind. It's very obvious though, there is no way you miss it, so don't worry about rushing missions or thinking stuff will lock out if you progress. That doesn't happen, as the last location you visit is primarily a point of no return. The rest of the planets and space stations you visit are fully available for exploration without finishing the main story by accident, so you don't have to worry if you are doing some missions on some planet that, oh my god, I'm going to finish the game now or something is going to happen. You don't have to worry about that. The point of no return is very obvious. As far as bugs and glitches are concerned, there was some here and there, nothing major at least in my own playthrough, but one quest, which is a side one, not that important, was broken and I couldn't finish it, which sort of pissed me off as that was the only quest that I didn't finish in the entire game. And every time I press my journal, you're going to see like all of the finished missions and that bugged mission, which is, I didn't like that. That was a problem. But throughout my playthrough, again, it was only one mission which was broken. There are some glitches here and there on the ground, like, which is normal, which tends to happen in these games, but I didn't have anything major which was hindering my progress, at least again for my own playthrough. So on the polishing side itself, I think it was well done and the overall experience was relatively smooth. Performance wise, I mean, overall I would say average I got was around 60 to 90 frames depending on the locations. Some planets are easier on the frames and I thought it was fine as I was playing this on high settings in 1440p. GPU was doing most of the heavy lifting, going up to 95%, but I mean, this is 3070 Ti. Even though it's a good card, let's face it, it's not made for 1440p gaming in 2026 on the latest games. But even in that case, I felt like, again, optimization was good, which should be the standard. I mean, if you have recommended specs and you pay $70 or euros or more for a game, you sort of expect it to work, and to be honest, for Outer Worlds 2, I did not have any major issues. With high settings, locations and textures were great. To be honest, some of the artifacting was present in the trees and grass as it moves, like shadowing itself, but that's, you know, fake frames, what can you do? It wasn't in your face, but if you look in some places you will see it, but you kinda have to really look for it. I didn't have a single crash playing this, which was a big surprise. I do wish I could talk more about spoilers, as there were some moments in the story I really enjoyed, including some side missions, but I think that Outer Worlds 2 is a very strong sequel. Again, I did like the first game more, but I wasn't disappointed with this one. I mean, again, as I said, I only do collectibles and all of that stuff if I really enjoy something. And this game had that specific formula alight, you know, gunplay was smooth and everything, as it wasn't filled with time-wasting missions or activities, so I kinda felt good doing them. I wasn't getting fatigued. Aspects like combat, environments, and just overall gameplay loop are strong. Although, again, I wish that the story was a bit more grand or maybe deeper in some aspects. There was, you know, something that was really like pushing that story narrative forward in terms of like that villain. It was, you know, it wasn't really the best in that way. I mean, some very interesting characters like only shared the screen for a bit, which was sad. I mean, this is one of those games where I felt adding just a bit more to it would round it up well, especially on that story front. And the ending itself, without obviously spoiling anything, was okay. Nothing major, just okay. Not great, not terrible. I mean, the main villain was sort of meh, as I said, or well, I think it's just because you don't really interact with that villain all that much, and as I said, there wasn't that big thing in the end where I went like, whoa. It was more like, okay, this just happened. I did get the best ending possible, I think. I mean, I doubt I could have done more, as I was satisfied in the end when they started listing what happened to locations and characters I interacted with. You know how it happens in these sort of RPGs. At the end, it gives you a summary. This is one of the better Obsidian games, one that I can really recommend if you vibe with Obsidian design. If you like the first game, you will enjoy this one. The main problem can be the price, as it's, premium one. I mean, it would have been nicer if this was 60 rather than 70, so if you can wait, once this is on a discount you feel comfortable spending money on, I say get it. It's a very good game and it's also a spacer choice. Just don't expect to have the next divine revelation playing this, because yes, it's fun to play, but I really feel like the story and some decisions you can make should have been fleshed out more or maybe extended in that sense. But it does feel like developers were really having fun with this game, and you can sort of see it when developers are passionate about the project, or if developers are just doing something, for like the game to be out, especially when it comes to these sort of studios. So I really feel like this title was really done with a lot of love, and I feel like this was done with a lot of passion, at least what I was able to deduct. I got around 35 hours in this, so not too long. Again, I'm saying this is not a very long game. So complete playthrough, not all achievements though. For that you might need 2 to 3 playthroughs to actually get. If you're really crazy about this game, you can get, I think, 60, 70, maybe top 80 hours from this. So again, as I said, they weren't going too far into just extending the game artificially, but keeping it, smaller, but at the same time with content which makes more sense and is more interesting. If Obsidian continues like this, I feel like they can really get back on a track to give us some great experiences. And I'm glad that they learned from their avowed mistakes. Obviously the direction was different director and everything else on that front. And because I really like Outer Worlds, as a franchise, I hope that if they ever do a third game, just fleshing out these decisions a bit more and extending that story to make it a bit more grand can really have outstanding, title itself. I mean, if I were to give a score to this, even though I don't really do that, I mean, it would be around 7, 8, maybe 8, yeah. But you draw your own conclusions. So that's it for this review. Let me know down below what do you think about all of this, if you played it, and how did you like it. In case you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing for more, as well as join our community on Twitter and Discord. Huge thanks to my current Patreon supporters, and I will see you very soon with a new video. As for the next review, we have the Tainted Grail new expansion, which I cannot wait to talk about. This is Alchem signing out, stay classy everyone, and bye bye.